I guess it might deserve more respect than the way these earlier generations are usually stereotyped, if nothing else because it's a little better. Sort of. But that doesn't mean it's good. Not all of the characters are for nothing, and there's enough potential so that you might even want to be charmed by it, but overall, it's a sketchbook attempt that needs refinement, and a lot more room to breathe.
But I do see a lot of the potential that G4 would eventually realize with its positive depictions of femininity and embracing of high fantasy. Really, I don't think this one episode is enough to say whether or not there's any merit to this show. It's just the setup, after all. Did you get any other suggestions for episodes to review?
Technically.
Okay, great. We'll watch as many as we have to in order to get this settled.
Oh joy.
And we're back. Now, even though Rescue at Midnight Castle is considered the G1 series pilot, it didn't technically lead straight into a series. That distinction falls to the second special, Escape From Catrina, which premiered the following year.
That's right, the placeholder middle child in between the pilot and the movie, featuring less remembered characters and no page of its own on Wikipedia. Like the other one, though, it was eventually inserted into the TV show as a pair of episodes. The final ones, no less.
Man, talk about confusing. For some people it was their first exposure to ponies, for others it was their last, but for most people it's still considered a G1 series standout.
Yay. So we begin once again with the ponies being cutesy, setting up a welcome party for Megan's return visit. Except this time it answers my complaint about rushing through itself too fast by staying right here and not cutting to anything awesome.
Nothing awesome, you say? What about having to save a baby pony from life or death peril?
You ruined our sign. I only tried to get the ball. Oh no! You can't splash me. You can't.
Dude! How accident-prone do you have to be to lightly tap a ball and have it go on a perfect collision course so it hits off a rock and flies back into a pony crossing a stream?
Come on, man, it's not that big of a deal.
Yes, it is! It's stupid!
Ow!
I'm not even in the same state as you!
Oh, really? Well then, you won't mind if I do this.
I'm really sorry, baby moon dancer. All right? That was fun.
Can I drown some more?
So the plot officially begins when the ponies lose the ball and have to go looking for it, which brings them by the cave of Catrina, evil queen of the furries, who is forcing her slaves, the bushwoolies, to make her a constant supply of witchweed potion. This operation is overseen by Rep, her assistant and apparently not-so-secret love interest. On this day, the bushwoolies decide they're sick of being slaves, as most people eventually do, and loudly announce their intention to escape, apparently assuming Rep won't try stopping them.
Not to mention being dumb enough to just start cheering for the notion right there instead of trying to keep it under wraps. But hey, it's not like...
Did you say escape? Don't drop me, please don't drop me.
Couldn't they just lose a privilege?
Yeah. You have no privileges, you're my slaves.
Katrina makes a good point.
But when she drops the helpless bushwoolie down the pit, Rep saves it by suddenly turning into a bird. Huh.
This causes Katrina to become so mad at his betrayal that she forgets about penalizing anyone and does absolutely nothing.
She's really not so bad once you get to know her better.
Oh ho, I sense something important to the characters. But it's a little early to get into that just yet. We'll save it for later. Meanwhile, let's get back to the party. Everyone continues to be annoyed by poor Sundancer and her clumsiness. But all is forgotten when Megan arrives on the back of Firefly's replacement for this outing.
Hold tight, Megan.
Good Godzilla, the transformation has begun.
As our guest of honor, we want you to wear this. The Rainbow of Light. I'll take good care of it. I'm Baby Moon Dancer. I'm Baby Surprise. I'm Baby Glory. I'm Baby Cotton Candy. Oh, look at you.
So Megan volunteers to watch the baby ponies during their pre-party nap, showing full confidence in her ability to do so in what is another great example of her character development. See, she's expressing a maternal side here that doesn't conflict with the strong side she showed in the last special, as sometimes happens when this sort of thing is done in stories. So in some ways, this character laid the groundwork for Blythe Baxter in Littlest Pet Shop.
You watch Littlest Pet Shop?
Hey, don't change the subject. The point is that this is an expansion of her character rather than a rewriting or a contradiction. All she has to do is use a little reverse psychology in what is, I have to admit, a cute little musical number, and she just gets them to tire themselves out. She's still really smart, as we saw before.
Too bad that trick has been called into question by other sources. Anyway, back with Catrina, the Bush Woolies proved the effectiveness of her spontaneously turning the other cheek like that by going right on ahead with their plan to escape just when Catrina's potion is running low, despite Rep pleading his case for Stockholm Syndrome. Honestly, though, I'm wondering if they have the attention span to do anything on their own without their leader here.
Maybe I can get you shorter hours.
Shorter hours, yeah! Too late. Too late.
How about a week off every summer?
Yeah, okay. No! Shut off the witch weed machine!
You know the sad part? You could place this conversation in a period drama about the formation of labor unions in the Industrial Revolution, and you wouldn't have to change a single word of dialogue. They eventually do escape, and Catrina realizes she's not getting them back, even though Rep is suddenly willing to help her again now. So, she sets her sights on the next viable race primed for manual labor. But her limited potion fuel powers prove no match for the Rainbow of Light, which Megan unleashes on her before anyone even knows what the heck is going on.
The rainbow saved us! It protected us again! Good work, Rainbow.
Don't these ponies ever stop to ask where all these bad guys are coming from? This defeat, however, just makes Catrina all the more determined, and now she's intent on stealing the Rainbow of Light.
The rainbow. We'll get the rainbow first, then the little pony. Suppose you didn't have the witchweed potion anymore. Why wouldn't I want the potion? It makes me powerful. To tell you the truth, I liked you better before you were powerful.
Well, this just got really deep really fast.
Come again?
Well, just step back for a moment and really look at this scene. We've got an abusive, broken relationship fueled by an addiction to a substance that makes you feel powerful for all the wrong reasons. That's some pretty heavy stuff right there. You can't even say this was a product of its time. Even today, substance abuse still destroys what used to be really healthy relationships. And this episode is even more on the nose than something like, say, Inspiration Manifestation, considering the substance in question actually is ground-up plants. Add to this that the way Catrina hurts people around her is more realistic than Rarity making odd aesthetic choices, and I can imagine this might actually be hard to watch for some people. You have to admit, Second, this is pretty deep stuff considering the source material.
No.
Come again?
Well, granted, it's fair enough if they're only trying to say that both of these things are bad, but just throwing complexities into your story doesn't make you deep, even if there's a possible metaphor. It's how you write them that matters. Like, you could argue Dragon Quest is a metaphor for different cultures and adoption and whatever else, but if so, it's a terrible one, because first and foremost, the moral doesn't really succeed on its own terms, let alone on a larger scale. Totally disown the sides of your heritage that made one bad impression on you because certain groups, despite equal intelligence, are just wired to be bad. No wonder that episode has its supporters fighting to claim that it's not a metaphor. But in the end, it doesn't matter, because the bottom line is whether it makes for a smart, dimensional story in itself. From there, it can be good as a stand-in for other things. Or not.
Well, what about how they're showing that the one usually leads to the other? Catrina's need for the stuff is clearly the thing that turned her from a loving, caring spouse into an abusive monster that just wants more substance, even at the expense of everyone around her. And Rep, the poor lovable sot, is enabling her addiction. He cares about her so much that it's clouded his judgment to the point where he'd rather get more of the stuff he knows is hurting her than risk losing her completely. Yeah, plus this is another example of gender inversion. Most of the time, abusive relationships in mass media are depicted as male on female, generally fueled by alcohol. Female on male abuse is rare and usually treated as a joke about emasculation when it does show up, even today. So far, Escape from Catrina has treated its inversion, and pretty much everything regarding the situation, as seriously as it can without getting into the really upsetting stuff.
Alright, you might have me there. But so far, it's only come into play with Rep reluctantly assisting Catrina. I mean, we still don't know what's actually going to come of it.
Fair enough point, I guess. Let's keep watching and find out. Back with the ponies, Megan learns about the problem everyone is having with Sundancer. So she sits the pony down to have a surprisingly delicate conversation about insecurities and learning to be proud of yourself. It's even hinted that Megan's own insecurities expressed in the last special may have resulted from something similar.
And then the episode decides, hey, it's not like we have an evil witch cat conflict to get to in this very limited runtime. Let's do another scene of Megan just kind of playing mom with these ponies. Except this time, make it truly something that could be cut and replaced with one line of dialogue. They're getting ready for the party, Baby Moondancer doesn't have a costume, Megan instantly comes up with one.
One more thing. Gee, the rainbow locket.
Well, it's not like she knew there was an evil furry witch out to, I mean, she had no reason to think Catrina would come back for... It's a really sweet... Snazzy, help me out here. You lost this one, Omni Viewer. Just admit it. Yeah, this is basically like giving her a plutonium rod as a necklace. But I haven't changed my mind at all about what...
Yeah, so if you can't guess what happens next, go right ahead and watch this special because you're gonna have a great time. And sure enough, with Rep schizophrenically deciding that he really is trying to help Catrina succeed now, it's off to the evil lair for the final battle.
They even get the Bush Woolies to tag along. Weird, I would have thought they'd be halfway across the country by now. Then again, for all I know they are, and this show is set on an island.
I want you to be my slave.
No!
Then say goodbye to baby Moondancer. Catrina, wait! That's going too far.
As opposed to trying to kill that bush woolly from before.
Hey, remember Batman Returns? Infanticide is always a bridge too far for the henchmen.
You asked for it, Catrina.
I did it, Megan. You sure did, Sundance.
Hey, look! Payoff!
Only I don't know if the worst part is how quickly it goes by, or that it's still the best example of such actually mattering in either of these specials so far.
Well, what about Rep finally cowboying up?
Help, Rep! Help me! I don't know, Catrina. If only you could change and be good again.
I can change. I can be really good. Just help me.
Now let's let this keep going a second.
If you destroy the Witchweed machine.
But that took forever to build. Can't you think of something else? Wait, I'll do it. But I need some more potion. I'm out of power.
Here it comes, Catrina. The machine, Catrina. Remember what you said.
Your metaphor, everyone. To fix your addicted, abusive spouse, simply physically assault them and threaten to let them die unless they change their ways. Then, if they ask for just one last dose before they give up their vice for good, go ahead and give it to them. That's perfectly reasonable.
Wait. No one ever said it was a 100% exact metaphor, not even me. I mean, these sort of things are never exact. We know Catrina doesn't have the strength on her own to destroy the machine without the potion, and the effects were off like that. I mean, they have the Rainbow of Light on their side again, so if she does try anything, all they have to do is zap her.
It doesn't matter anyway, it's a pointless risk. There is no reason for them to give her more potion. All she'd really have to do is zap Megan and she'd be the big shot in the room again. I mean, she only agreed to go along with this because they were threatening to let her die. She has no reason not to betray them. Let her take the time to smash the machine with a hammer to prove her goodwill.
Well, yeah, you've got me there. The writing for this scene was atrocious. But I think the intent is plain enough to see. Some people have to hit rock bottom or be led right up to the edge of that cliff in order to finally get the point. At least this way we know she's most likely sincere, right?
And I'm sure that totally plausible, not in any way contrived turn will be fleshed out in the closing sequence to bring Catrina to a satisfying close.
Dressed like a dream, they're all dressed like a dream. Take a look and you'll agree. Life is supreme when you're dressed like.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Well, at the very least, they're not... I don't want to hear one word out of you, mister. Besides, I already have a scene to counterbalance it.
You look beautiful, Catrina.
Do you really think so, Doctor?
Just like the good old days. Come on, Catrina. Your public awaits.
See right there? A villain has been reformed, and this time it didn't come out of left field, because we know Catrina used to be nice, and there were hints throughout that there might have still been some good left in her. I'm taking what I can get, okay?
I think I'm ready with my final thoughts if you are.
Please, after you.
Yeah, whatever flash and fire the first special managed to scrape together is already starting to fade here. You could argue that this one is paced a little bit better, since the character bits at least feel like more than a rapid-fire checklist of lip service, but it's not really plotted any better. Leaning more towards slice of life this time means Catrina doesn't get to build up the action or the excitement nearly as much as Tyrek did, and she's already a far less threatening presence in the first place. Even if her arc with Rep had potential, the missteps and the contrived or underdeveloped bits drag it down to the level of just another mediocre bad guy story. And the extra time with the heroes doesn't do much to make up for it. Megan's subplot with Sundance is the only part that has any story-relevant payoff, and it's marginal payoff at that, so their side of the tale is still kind of anemic. It's got a couple gentle scenes, and the special as a whole isn't really bad per se, it's just not that good. Or interesting.
Well, in spite of all of that, I still say there's stuff to be gleaned from this special, especially with the villains. Catrina and Rep were characters with actual backstories, unlike what we got last time. Tyrek was evil for the sake of being evil, which was fine for that particular story, but you can't have every villain be that way. Plus, Scorpan never got an explanation when he clearly needed one. The fact that Rep and Catrina have backstories and character arcs with payoff despite the horrible writing makes them more interesting to watch. On top of that, Megan's character continued to grow in interesting ways as well. And I would argue that if she'd been given better writers, she could have been a true icon of 80s animation. I will admit there is a lot wrong with this thing. The writing is atrocious, the pacing is awful. It feels like Escape from Catrina takes as many steps backwards as it does forward. So it doesn't surpass Midnight Castle, but it doesn't sink too far beneath it either.
Well, that's great and all, but if it's only downhill from here, I think even your friend Snazzy can agree that this series is a great big...
Shut your pie hole! In case you've forgotten, I'm the tiebreaker here, and I say we're not done yet. These are still just the opening specials. We need to watch something from the show's main run before we can say we've seen the best it has to offer.
For crying out loud.
Look, I don't know how things are done on your channel, but the Omni Viewer and I believe in being thorough. Now, are you coming along or not?
What if I say no?
Then you'll never hear the end of it from your subscribers. It will haunt you. Forever.
Alright. Just to put this to rest once and for all, I'll review an arc of the show with you, and I'll make it the one fans have assured me is the best thing ever to come from it.
And that would be?
The Return of Tambalin.